Today on Mr. Thessalonian, we're going to start assembling the full upper body section of our 3D printed exoskeleton suit. We've printed all of these parts on the CREALITY K1C. You can see just how many parts it's taken to be able to produce everything we need for the full upper body. You can see the two hands here. You can see the flexible joints. Those pieces right there are made out of TPU, and that's going to be for our shoulder and our elbow. You can see some of the pins that we're going to use to lock those into place. Up above that, you can see the shoulder hooks that go over the top of your shoulder. And just above the shoulder hooks, you'll see the back T. That'll connect those two side pieces that sit on top of your shoulders and our shoulder hooks together. You can see over here our fully rotating upper sections of our shoulder on both sides. You can see some of the washers we're going to need inside of those, connector pins here and here. You can see all the nuts and bolts that I've printed out to hook this all together, since each one of these pieces is interchangeable and modular. So if it's not the right size for you, you could reprint a piece of it and shorten one of them down or extend them a little bit longer and make this suit fit just about anybody. Going down the line here, we have our upper part of our arm right there. We have the lower part of our arm that connects to that and makes the elbow section between the two of them. We have a connector from our lower part of our arm to our wrist section. This part here is where you actually hold on to, and the front section of that hooks up directly to the back of our hands. You can see all that right there and ready to go. Let's go ahead now. I'll set up the camera and we're going to start assembling the full upper body of our 3D printed exoskeleton suit. So probably the easiest place for us to start is we're going to go ahead and attach our hands to our wrist sections. And we're going to get that going over here on this side, and we're going to build one side of the arm all the way up to the shoulder, then we'll move over to the other side and do the same process all the way up again. So what we're going to go ahead and do is grab our wrist section. I've already got two screws sticking in the back of this. You can see them right here. If I get the angle right, you can see the heads of the screws sticking out. They come out right here, and I've got two screw holes right here in the back of our hands. You can see that one right there and this one right here. These holes here are actually where the cables go up into the fingers and actuate the fingers, which we'll attach later on. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to stick, you can see kind of a recessed area right here in the hand. We're going to go ahead and stick the hand down into that recessed area. We're going to grab a Phillips screwdriver. Let's see if we can get that to line up. Let's go ahead and start twisting these screws into our hands. Alright, those are nice and tight. So now what we have here is where we're going to actually hold onto the arm so we can actuate that arm and move it all around. We've got that now hooked up to our robotic hand. Alright, so that's attached and ready to go. Now at the bottom of this piece here, you'll notice I've got a flat section. Maybe if I get that angled at the camera right, you can see one side of this is flat. Right here we have our junction between our wrist and our lower part of our arm that goes to the elbow. Inside of there I also have a flat notch, and that's going to allow us to slide those two pieces together just like this. So there we go, we now have that together. Let's go ahead and grab one of our 3D printed bolts. We're going to stick that down into the hole. It'll come out the other side. We're going to grab one of our 3D printed nuts. Let's go ahead and screw that on there. There we go, we now have one more section of our 3D printed suit connected. The next part of this is our lower arm elbow connector, and you can see here we have a insert piece there at the top. And that little section right there is where we're going to slide the TPU joint section that'll allow our elbow to flex into. And we'll do that here in just a second. Once again, I have a flat section on that that'll slide into the flat section on our joiner tube here. We're going to go ahead and stick those into each other. This one will take a little bit more force to get them in. Alright, now that I got those two pressed into each other and aligned with our holes right here, let's go ahead and grab another one of the 3D printed bolts down into that hole, just like that. Take another one of 3D printed nuts. Twist that onto there. Alright guys, so there's the entire lower section of our arm ready to go. The next part of this is we're going to go ahead and stick one of our TPU flexible joints into this little opening right there, and this is this piece right here. You can see one side has a hole in it, the other side is solid. Let me show you the bendability of this material. So there you go, that's going to actually be the flex of our elbow right there. We're going to use the solid side to put into the groove right here, and we're just going to force that in as hard as it is. Just go ahead and force that all the way in. There we go. We now have our flexible joint in at our elbow. Let's go ahead and set that piece down for a second. We're going to start assembling the upper part of the arm, and then we'll connect the two together. So the next part of this is we're going to grab the lower part of our upper arm. Once again, you can see that little groove section in right here that's going to allow us to hook up to our TPU elbow. The next part of this is going to be is that we need a little connector pin right here. Once again, all of these have a flat side to them, allowing them to go into place always the same direction, and also makes it so they can't twist when they're in place. That pin is going to go right there into that, and that way we have the extension out of that lower part of our upper arm. Once again, we're going to grab one of our 3D printed bolts right here. We're going to stick it through from the outside, or just like that. We'll grab our 3D printed nut, twist that into place. Alright, so now we have the lower part of our upper arm's elbow ready to go. Alright, so the next part of this here is this piece right here. Kind of a simple piece. It has a perfectly round peg on the top instead of having a flat side to it. That one's perfectly round. On the bottom we have one of our holes with the flat side in there. So that flat side hole is going to line up with the flat side on the peg we just put into that one. Just like that, really easy to do. And that's going to require the longest bolt that we 3D printed, and we're going to go ahead and push that all the way through, just like this. And then we're going to go ahead and grab our 3D printed nut. We'll twist that on, just like that. Okay, so now we have a big section of our upper arm ready to go. Let's go ahead and grab the next piece of this, which is one of these right here. This is the lower section of basically a rotating capable shoulder section. This will allow us to rotate the lower section of the arm in multiple different directions. And it has a little opening right here, as you can see, and that'll allow us to put some washers in there once we stick this fully round peg up into there. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So we can stick that up in there, and what this will allow us to do is twist the lower part of our arm completely if you want 360 degrees, a little hard to do with your arm in it. But that'll give us a full rotation capability on one direction on our lower part of our arm. Now, once we align this hole up here at the top of this, we've got a couple of these washers that you see right here. These are basically friction discs that we're going to stick into that hole, and we're going to align those with the peg that comes up from the lower part of the arm. I'll have to turn that a little different direction, so there we go. Maybe you can see those in there. We've got the washers on top of that little peg that sticks out in there, and in that peg we have a hole. Let me line that up for you guys. In that peg we have a hole, and we're going to go ahead and slide one of these little pins right here down into that hole, and it's got a flat section on it that you line with the washers. Okay, give me a second. This will be a little difficult to do at this angle. Alright, so now I've got that Carter pin pushed all the way down into there. Go ahead and give you guys a view of that. What that does is makes it so it can't come apart, holds right on top of those friction discs, and now we have a fully rotating section of our lower arm. The next stage of this is we're going to go ahead and hook that up to our lower part of our arm by sliding that into our flexible TPU joint. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this so you can see. So there you go. We now have a fully flexing elbow, and with this we can rotate the arm side to side just like that. So it gave us 2 degrees of motion right there. Alright, so let's go ahead and set that arm down. We've now got the full upper arm and lower arm with the hand all connected together and ready to go. The next stage of this, let's go ahead and move up a little bit. So we're going to now hook together all the shoulder sections and hook one of the shoulders up to one of the arms here. So now we're going to start working on our shoulder section. We're going to need the tube of super glue. This is one of those pieces that I couldn't print in full length, and that's this piece right here and this little peg right here. Once again, this peg's completely round because it's going to actually fit in another rotator section just like the one we just put together. On the other side of this, you can see I've got a hole in there that'll allow us to put this peg down inside that hole, but we're going to need to glue that down into there. And we've got a hole on this side over here that's going to allow us to put another Carter pin in, so we want to make sure that that's sticking out. Let me go ahead and put a little super glue right down inside of this hole right here. Put some on the edges. Alright, so we've got some super glue down in that hole. We'll set that over to the side. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and just stick that peg right down into the hole. Give it a couple twists. Make sure that my Carter pin hole's lining up directly side to side here. We're going to give that just a moment to set up and dry. And we're going to go ahead now and move on to the next piece. Alright, so the next part of this, let me go ahead and move down a little bit so I can get this into the camera shot for you guys. We'll move down the arm a little bit. We're going to go ahead and grab the upper shoulder rotator section right here. We've got a TPU insert right here. We've got the TPU insert on the upper section of our lower arm, and we've got one of these right here. And so this is going to be the shoulder TPU flexible point. This will give us basically kind of a shoulder lift out sideways, and I'll show you this once the suit's all together so you can see what it does. We've got some holes in these. Let me go ahead and show you that. We've got some pins right here. And what we're going to do is once we slide this into place, we're going to take these pins, we're going to stick them into those holes and push that all the way down in. And what that'll do is stop these from ever coming out of these lock points here, these slide in little grooves, kind of locks this material into that groove for us. And we'll put those pins in last though. Kind of one of those things that we don't need to do until the very end. Next step of this is we're going to take our TPU shoulder joint and our lower section of our upper arm, and we're going to go ahead and slide right into that joint right there, our TPU shoulder section there. And you'll notice on the back of this there's a couple screw holes right there. This will allow me later on, once we put the peg in the center of that, to put a couple screws down in there and really help lock that into place so it can never come out. You can see here we now have one of our TPU joints in there. The next part of this is to slide this section down over the other part of that TPU joint, just like that. And there we go. We now have the ability to flex our arm out sideways. We can rotate the arm this direction and this direction and flex it sideways. Pretty neat there, huh guys? Alright, so we've probably had plenty of time for our super glue to set on our upper shoulder section right here. We're going to go ahead and right there at the back of this, you can see the peg hole right there. We're going to line that up. We're going to stick the peg right down into that just like this. And once again, we're going to need 2 of these washers. Just like this. Let's go ahead and reach down into that hole. I'll line those up with that peg. Get them right over that and slide them down a bit. Alright, so we now got our washers in there. We'll need a cotter pin. Hold those into place. Let me see if I can line this all up right. And there we go. We've got our cotter pin into place. So now what we have here, guys, if I can get this into the shot for you, is we have the ability to rotate our shoulder now this direction and this direction, and we can flex it all the way out with our flexible joint. And this combination of rotating sections and flexible joints gives you the full dimension of rotation and actuation that your natural arm has. So this can follow all your normal movements really easily and fluidly. So there you go. Very simple, easy design to put together. So there you go, guys. We've now got one arm and our upper shoulder section put together. We're going to now start working on the other arm, and once we get the other arm together, we'll connect the 2 of them together with a T-brace. Once the T-brace is on, we can attach both of our shoulder hooks, and our full upper body section of our suit will be completed. We're going to start assembling the other arm here. It's going to be the exact same thing I just showed you on the other side, so I'll talk a lot less and kind of make this happen a lot faster here. Let's go ahead and grab our wrist and our hand. We'll stick those into each other once again, into that little recessed groove into there. Grab our Phillips screwdriver. Let's go ahead and tighten down these screws. Alright, there we go. Our hand's now attached to our wrist. Once again, we're going to grab one of our connector sections that hooks that wrist to our elbow. We're going to make sure we get it the right direction. There we go. We'll stick one of our 3D printed bolts in there. Tighten down our 3D printed nut. Alright, so we've now got that assembled. We'll grab the elbow section of our lower arm. Take a little bit of force to get those aligned. We'll grab another one of these 3D printed bolts and we'll twist on a 3D printed nut. Alright, so now we've got our full lower arm ready to go. Let's go ahead and assemble our upper arm once again. We're going to go ahead and line up our peg here into the hole into the top part of our elbow. We'll take one of our 3D printed nuts and bolts. Put that all together just like this. Alright, we need our rotator section. Stick that in like that. Another 3D printed bolt, another 3D printed nut. Alright, now we need one of our rotating top sections here. We're going to stick that down over that. 2 of our washers. Get those to line up over the top of that peg. Alright, just like that, we'll need another cotter pin. We'll stick that down into the hole up on the top of the rotator. And there we go. That can't come apart now. We've now got one of our directions ready to go. Alright, so we can set that down and grab our flexible joint. Let's go ahead and stick the one side once again into the lower part of our elbow, just like that. We'll stick the other side here into our upper part of our elbow, just like that. Now we're going to move up here to the shoulder again, and I'm going to need to glue that peg into this upper shoulder section again, so we're going to add some super glue. all the way around the sides and in the bottom. Make sure there's a lot in there. No need for that to ever come apart again. Alright, so we'll stick that peg in there. Once again, make sure I get my Carter hole lined up directly out to the side. Give it a couple twists because the super glue likes that. We're going to let that dry for just a moment. Set that off to the side. We can now start attaching the upper rotating section to our lower arm. We're going to go ahead and grab our TPU shoulder flex joint. Stick that into that hole. Push that down into place. Line that up here with the groove in the lower part of the flex joint of our shoulder. We'll slide that down into place just like that. This time, while we're waiting for the glue to dry, I'm going to go ahead and insert a couple of our pins into those, so you can see here. And that'll make sure that just can't come back out of there no matter what. We'll go ahead and put our pin into this side as well. Alright, so we can set that down. We've probably got just enough time here on this so that it's dried now. Let's go ahead and stick that into the rotator. We'll take 2 more of our washers. Stick that down in there. We'll line those up with the peg in there. Get them down over the Carter hole. Take one of our Carter pins. Stick that down into that hole again. Alright, let's see. Kind of a little difficult to get that over that. Alright, we got that pushed into place. We've now got both of our arms completely connected together. Let's go ahead and line up the 2 upper sections of our shoulder together, just like that. Alright, so hopefully you guys can see what we've got going on up here. You go ahead and move that down just a little bit in the shot for you so you can see it a little bit better. Alright, there we go. We'll move that down. So what we're going to try to do now is we're going to actually glue our shoulder hooks onto our T-plate, and then once that dries we're going to attach all of that right here, and that'll bring the entire system together as one unit. So to start out with, I'm going to take some super glue and a couple screws. So here we got 2 screws. These are 1.5 inches, I believe is what they are. On the one side of our shoulder hooks we've got some larger holes, and the other side are smaller holes. We're going to go ahead and put some super glue right here around the bottom side of the head of our bolts. Just a little bit around that. Drop that into those holes just like this. We'll pull them down hard against the outside. We're going to let those dry and set that glue on there so that these bolts stay glued into place on this side. It'll make it a lot easier to attach this. Once again, we'll just drop that in there, get that to line up. There we go. Now we're going to set that to the side. Let's grab the other one over here and do the exact same thing. Put some glue on the back side of the head here of the screw. Drop that into the hole. Let it drop into place. We've allowed the glue to dry fully here. It's been about 15 minutes. We've got our full T-plate now glued to our shoulder hooks, as you can see right here. Real quickly at the front edge of these shoulder hooks, you can see a couple grooves in those. Right here, those go all the way through, and that's going to allow us to put some kind of strap material through those. Those straps will go down over your chest and connect to the waistline. Some way to kind of strap you into the suit here. So our next part of this is that we're going to glue the back section of this right up to the face of this plate right here. We're also going to glue these overhanging edge from the shoulder hooks up to the top section of these shoulder bars up here, and that'll give us a really solid mount to the shoulder bars. And this is kind of a crucial piece to get a good solid mount to. To align everything properly, you can see some holes here in the shoulder plates right here, and they're all the way across. You can also see some holes here in the T-bar. We're going to go ahead and stick some screws down through those holes. We're going to apply a bunch of glue across this face and these 2 faces here. We're going to set that into place, use those screws to align everything, glue that down, and then later we're going to pull those screws back out. We're going to want to be able to use these screw holes later on because there's a piece that goes on the back of this that's going to actually hold our drive motors. So we want to be able to put some really long lag bolts all the way through everything at the end of this, and that'll help make this really, really solid. But for now, we're going to glue it together. So let me go ahead and grab some of the bolts here. We're going to start dropping these down through these holes. And all we're going to do is use these bolts to actually just align everything so it stays exactly where it's supposed to be while we're gluing it together. So just a couple more. And there we go. Now if I can keep my hand over all those just right and flip it over, we're going to now apply a bunch of super glue across this back face and up over those overhanging edges from the shoulder hooks. So let's start with the overhanging edges. Get some glue on that. Just like that. Now we can go ahead and start applying glue all the way over this entire surface area right here. A little bit more up here on these. All right, there we go. Let's go ahead and get this flipped over. We'll line all those screw holes up with our plates for our shoulder mounts. All right, there we go. We've got all of that aligned. I'm going to go ahead and put some clamps on this. We're going to let that dry, and I'll show you guys what it looks like now that we've got the entire upper body section completely assembled and ready to go. Alright guys, we've got all the parts put together for the upper body section of our 3D printed exoskeleton suit. Everything's glued and ready to go. I've set it up against the CREALITY K1C box just to kind of give you a good look at what it looks like all completely assembled here. See how nice all that turned out. Let me go ahead and set up the camera. I'll get into the suit. Alright, I got both of those ready to go. Let's go ahead and grab our hands. So here you guys go. Look at this. Look how nice the range of motion is with our exoskeleton. Look at that, guys. Let me go ahead and show you all the range of the motion. First of all, our TPU shoulder hinges give us this range of motion, just like that. Our TPU elbow obviously is giving our elbow a full flexibility. The lower arm rotation section is giving us the ability to rotate the arm this direction, just like this, and then the upper shoulder rotation gives us this direction right here. So we can move completely back and forth, we can move the shoulder up, we can move the arm in and out, and all combined we get a full range of motion that'll follow your hands very effectively, very fluid. Shouldn't feel like you're trapped by the motions of the machine. In fact, the machine should feel like it moves really freely with you. Look at that, guys. There's our upper body powered exoskeleton frame, completed, assembled, and our first test of it just to see how well it's going to function, how well it's going to flow with us. I really like it. It feels like it's going to work great. All we got to do now is apply the power system to power all this, run the cables down through each one of the pulley sections there, up into our hands. A little later on, what we're going to do is we're going to print some covers that slide down over these handholds. And those covers are going to have the actual buttons in them that will allow us to power all this. So we'll have a thumb button, a couple finger buttons. Each one of those will do something different, allowing us to control the upper body section of our suit right here from our hands. So there you guys go. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? Go ahead and turn around here and just give you guys a back shot of it so you can see what the back looks like when I'm using it. We can actually change out our hands. We can change the arm lengths with each one of the modular pieces that are on this. If we want something a little shorter, a little longer, say we want a hand that has a thumb in a different direction, because I've noticed this thumb direction is going to be only good for grabbing certain things. I may want a 90-degree thumb where the thumb's actually turned out and closes this direction. Later on we can just print a new hand, slap that hand right into place, and have different modular designs for the hands. After that, we need to finish printing the rest of the back of this suit. We're going to print the midsection of the suit so you can strap into it easily. Then we're going to print the hips. Then we're going to move all the way down to the knees and then down to the feet. It's going to be quite a big build once this is all done. But as you can see, it's already turning out pretty good. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, this is Mr. Thessalonian. Get out there, get yourself a 3D printer, and be creative. Hope you enjoyed.